So I downshift into small talk. I ask her where she went to school, and she says Michigan State. And this reminds me of Helen.
Helen went to Michigan State?
No, she went to Northwestern. But they're both Big Ten schools.
If only the college football playoff had started a year earlier. If that were the case, 2013 would have seen Michigan State as a 4 seed play Florida State. Yeah, if only it started a year earlier. That's because that season Michigan State upset Ohio State. And instead of a college football playoff appearance, because we were still in the BCS era, Michigan State had to settle for the Rose Bowl and a victory over Stanford. Last season, more hard luck for the Spartans. In the first year of the playoff, Michigan State was out of contention because their only 2 losses occurred to the 2 teams that met for the college football playoff national championship, Ohio State and Oregon. Entering this year, expectations again will be high for Mark D'Antonio's squad. D'Antonio, by the way, has won 24 games in just the past 2 seasons. Not shabby at all, and has lost just 3. Expectations are high because of not only what Michigan State has done just in the past 2 seasons, but because of the wealth of talent they have coming back. And, of course, Connor Cook is a big reason why. Cook could have forgone his senior year and been a late first rounder, maybe early second round at worst draft pick from the NFL this past season, but decided to give college football one more season and a crack at a national championship. And Cook, last season, was the Big Ten's leading passer with over 3,000 yards through the air, 24 TDs, only 8 picks. But we really saw him grow in the Cotton Bowl against Baylor, in which, trailing by a big deficit entering the 4th quarter, Cook and the Spartans did not quit, in spite of the fact that Cook in that 4th quarter during the comeback threw what looked like was going to be a costly interception, thus sealing the fate of the Spartans. But he got another shot, and Cook didn't waste the extra opportunity. Got a touchdown run in the final minutes, and the Michigan State, thanks to a blocked field goal, got another shot, and Cook delivered with a touchdown pass with under 20 seconds to go for a 1-point Michigan State win. One of the most improbable comebacks you'll see in college football, and Cook was a big part of it. But this time he'll have some new faces to work around as far as the backfield and the receivers. They lose Tony Lippett, the Big Ten receiver of the year in 2014, and they also lose Keith Mumphrey. So stepping into those shoes, you have guys like Monty Medeiros and also Aaron Burbridge. Burbridge could end up being the favorite target of Connor Cook along with Josiah Price at tight end. The running game, yeah, they lose a big name, and this guy here, Jeremy Langford, you got to remember the Big Ten last season, when you had a guy from Nebraska and Amir Abdullah, he definitely garnered a lot of headlines. The Big Ten had several backs last season that get garnered headlines, and Langford might have been one of those guys under the radar. Remember, Wisconsin had, Melvin Gordon, and of course we know what kind of year he had. So there's no doubt that Langford may not have been seen as one of those backs that got a lot of attention, but Michigan State's going to miss him. And in the backfield, you'll have a guy, looks like Gerald Holmes will get some playing time this year, and a freshman by the name of L.J. Scott. And by the way, if anybody knows the status of Delton Williams, please let me know. I've been trying to find out if he's eligible to play again. He was suspended by D'Antonio this past spring for an arrest, so I've really been trying to get to the bottom of the future for him, because right now depth at running back could be an issue for Michigan State. Last season, by the way, Michigan State rushed for 235 yards on average per game. So that's not bad at all. And you've got some new guys who are going to be starters, and we'll see if they can even come close to replicating what that Spartan ground game did a year ago. Remember Michigan State last year, 43 points per game. 43 points per game. That's fat right there. That was 7th in the country. Big reason why was the offensive line. And this is a big benefit for Michigan State, returning nearly everybody on the front, including potential All-American candidate once again in Jack Allen. Also Donovan Clark at right guard. Right tackle returning Cody Kyler. And a guy that could be playing in the NFL soon, that's left tackle Jack Conklin. So Michigan State's offensive line is going to be one of the best in football. Defensively, now this is really going to be a test for Michigan State. We've known them for having good defense in the past, but a big name that they have to replace is going to be Pat Narduzzi. You might say, who? Well, he was the defensive coordinator. He was there about as long as D'Antonio was, as coach. Well, of course, D'Antonio's still there, but Narduzzi took the head coaching job at Pittsburgh, coaching for the Pittsburgh Panthers in the ACC. So now you have Harlan Barnett and Mike Tressel, who will be the co-defensive coordinators And to their benefit, they're going to have maybe the best defensive line in college football. Just like Connor Cook, Shalique the Freak Calhoun could have left and not come back for his senior season. But he's given college football one more year as well, and we'll see if he can have an even better season. Last year, had several tackles for loss and had 8 sacks for Shalique Calhoun. And complimenting him on the other side is going to be Lawrence Thomas. You have Joel Heath at defensive tackle, and you've got 3 seniors who could definitely step up to the plate. And also defensive tackle, don't forget the sophomore in Malik McDowell. Linebackers should be just as strong for Sparty as Ed Davis, a strong linebacker. I really like this guy. I think he can play. And at middle linebacker, the brother of Max Bulla, and if you're a Michigan State fan, you know what a legend Max Bulla was. He was Mr. Intensity, and he backed it up. Well, his brother Riley Bulla is there at the middle linebacker position for Michigan State. And at the starter position, Darian Harris, 19 tackles a year ago, including a couple of sacks. But the secondary is going to be the biggest difference between Michigan State having a good year and what could be a college football playoff type season. Last season, they were not good against the pass. As a matter of fact, when you look at the 3 best offenses that Michigan State faced a year ago, Oregon, Ohio State, and Baylor, those teams torched, and I mean torched, the Michigan State secondary, including Baylor, who threw for over 600 yards against that defense. Look, Michigan State, against the teams that may not have had the high-octane pass offenses, held their own, but against those other teams, yeah, it was a different story. And last season, they were 11th in the Big Ten when it came to pass defense, giving up almost 240 per game through the air. And only one player, full-time starter, is back for Michigan State in the secondary. That's R.J. Williams, who did have 3 picks. And at corner, Darian Harris, who did play 10 games a year ago, he's going to be depended upon heavily at corner because you got to remember, you don't have Trey Wayans and you don't have probably the best of the bunch in Curtis Drummond back for Michigan State. Not that these guys weren't without flaws, but when you have a virtually new secondary as far as starters coming off a year in which you know you could have played better, you know that the challenge is really going to be there for both Tressel and Barnett as co-defensive coordinators to have Michigan State play at an acceptable level to be college football playoff viable. Special teams, Michael Geiger at kicker, really watched because during the offseason had to have a procedure for hip pointer, and punting has been no question a trademark for Michigan State over the years. They've been solid in this area. So now a lot of pressure will be on the freshman. That's Jake Harbarger to keep that tradition going for Michigan State. The schedule, well, to me, it comes down to just a few games because I think most of the games Michigan State's going to be fine. As you see the schedule, that second game, the revenge game, if you're a Michigan State fan, you're hoping against Oregon, and this time you get them in your backyard at East Lansing. The Ducks, of course, a Pac-12 power. And then the schedule eases up a little bit. Can't take anybody lightly, but it looks like the next true marquee game would be around, I would say, mid-October when you're facing your hated rivals from Ann Arbor against Michigan and new coach Jim Harbaugh. I think Michigan will eventually be a power to be reckoned with because Harbaugh's there. But this year, because Harbaugh's getting acclimated to his new team, you think Michigan State would have the advantage, even though it's a road game. November is the true make-it-or-break-it month for Sparty. You play at Nebraska, second game in November, and that won't be easy because Nebraska, in my opinion, is going to be favored in the West. And then don't forget about Maryland. By the way, the Nebraska game is the 1st of November. Maryland's the second game in November. You get them at home, but don't rest on the Terrapins. And then Ohio State. Yes, the defending national champions, the Buckeyes, last season, they scored nearly half 100 on you, and you have to play them on the road this time, and they have nearly everybody back. So to say that's going to be a big challenge would be an understatement. And you close out with Penn State, who has a pretty good defense. Overall, I think Michigan State, because they return Cook, because they return virtually the entire offensive line and defensive line, the Spartans are going to be a contender. However, I do have doubts about the secondary, and I do have my doubts about the new headliners at wide receiver and running backs if they can prove their weight. And also, too, most of Michigan State's difficult games are on the road. Michigan, Nebraska, as well as Ohio State. Those are going to be tough for Michigan State to try to get W's. I think Michigan State's a 10-win team and will get a New Year's Six bowl invitation somewhere. So they'll play in a major bowl game, but I don't think 2 teams from the Big Ten are going to get a bid, and I think you know where I'm leaning toward when it comes to who I think is going to come out of the Big Ten when it comes to the college football playoff. I think Michigan State will get close, but I think it's no cigar for the Spartans as far as a playoff, but they'll still be a 10-2 type season for the Spartans. That's my look at Michigan State. So long, everyone.